What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of You Said It Best, Brother. So, today, after a decent little hiatus, I'm here to talk about something that I've talked to a lot of my friends about actually over the last month, 2 months. Just something that I've kind of taken as a something that I'm passionate about, I guess, and that's media, specifically physical media. So, if you know me at all, if you've listened to this podcast or my other podcast, or watched this podcast or my other podcast, Stream Kings, you know that I'm passionate about movies, music, all kinds of that kind of stuff, I think I said all kind of that kind of stuff. Anyways, whatever. Um, you know, Entertainment media for sure. So, I grew up as someone who just really began to love movies, TV, video games. I grew up playing Crash Bandicoot on my original PlayStation, and that was incredible. I still think as a 90s kid, as a millennial, we had it best as far as what was available to us. The kids these days have screens right there ready for them at age 2 or 3. But for me, media was something that I just, you know, consumed rarely. I grew up playing outside, and I had 30 minutes of video games a day. That was just my household. I could play 30 minutes of video games, and we had family nights watching TV and things like that. But that aside, that time that I had to consume and play video games and do different things, that was special, right? And that was something that I really valued and appreciated. So as an adult, I've continued to love movies, love TV, love playing video games, and now as an adult who has a good amount of free time, especially as a single adult, I have lots of time to do those kinds of things. And the last again several months, I've kind of started to think about consuming and the way and what I can how I consume, right? So again, as a millennial, kind of grew up on that TV. Still remember I used to go to my great grandparents' house, and they had the rabbit ears television and stuff like that, and we've progressed very far from that. But I grew up with a PlayStation with discs and a Game Boy Color and little cartridges, and all music still came on CDs. I had a little like a Walkman, whatever, and a cassette tape player, all that kind of stuff. So definitely grew up with physical media, but as a 32-year-old, I've seen that progress, right? So I started with that. I bought songs on iTunes. I stole music from the internet. Don't tell anybody. I could get in trouble, whatever, But like most kids my age, you know, we were stealing stuff. We were ripping it from the internet. But also bought a good amount too. Just putting it out there. I we would buy it, and we would own it, right? In a physical sense. But then when iTunes came out, I think it was really kind of started with iTunes. When I got my first iPod, and I went to the Apple store, I was like, man, I can buy these songs for 99 cents. And then they go to my computer hard drive, and they'd be attached to my Apple ID, and I'd own it over all of my different devices and things like that. And that was kind of big back then, right? It's all right, I someone who had all these CDs, and I could upload them to my computer. I could also buy songs that if I wanted to buy individual songs instead of a whole album, I could do that, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then as time kind of progressed and everything like that, kind of moved towards more just buying songs like that. And then Netflix came out, and you could, well, it first started where you'd pay for Netflix, and they would actually send you a DVD and or a video game, and you'd borrow it, and you'd have to send it back. But then Netflix became a huge streaming platform, and it was all right, you pay what, $5-10 a month, and you have all of The Office, you have all these big blockbuster movies just kind of at your fingertips. And big corporations really kind of latched onto that, and we've progressed to the point where everybody has these streaming platforms, and have, again, all this entertainment at your fingertips. And while that seems great, I'm here to tell you today that I don't think that that is the future, and that is the best way, that's not the best way for us to move forward, right? So again, I mentioned like Sony and PlayStation. I'm a pretty diehard Sony guy, and I have a PlayStation 5 with a disc drive and a hard drive. And for the last like 4 or 5 years, if I like found a game that I liked and it was on sale, like I would buy it. Like, oh, 2K is on sale like 2 weeks after it came out, like for $30. Heck yeah, let's go, let's get it. And I own that license, which I'm going to talk about later. And it's in on my console, and I can play it, and I can have fun and do all that kind of stuff. But I think that there are some downsides to streaming and buying digital, and like having these things available in like the cloud and things like that, instead of hard physical copies, whether like VHS. And some of you guys probably don't even know who that is or what that is, right? And a cassette tape and DVD and oh my gosh, what are the big discs? Drawing a blank. Records. Thank you. Took me a second because I actually don't have any of those. Never did. But I think that there are some positives and some negatives to physical media, but I'm here to talk about why I think physical media is the way to go. So let's see. So again, I kind of like talked a little bit of like now, right? So the average American, I think, or not American, I don't know how it is globally, but I'm sure it's probably pretty much the same. Like, we consume a lot of our stuff via streaming platforms. We had this, like, we grew up with cable, or like Dish Network or DirecTV, whatever, and we kind of like didn't like the fact that we had to pay like a ton of money for stuff that we didn't watch. And all of these different networks decided, like, oh, what if we copied Netflix? What if we have like a Peacock and HBO Max and Paramount, and we have all of these different different platforms with our stuff on it? So now you have to pay for all of these different streaming platforms and everything, streaming services, to get all of this stuff that you have. And like video games, again, like, you can pre-order digitally, and you can get it 2 days early, and it's available, and you can play it, and all of that's good, right? But I think there are some downsides. So I want to weigh some pros and cons to physical media versus digital media. So first, some pros to physical media. Physical media, you own it. You own it, and it is yours. You buy this physical copy of something, and nobody can ever take that from you, unless if they actually physically like rob you, right? Like, that's in your possession until somebody like actually strips it from you. If you guys, a couple like different things that I remember, like, especially of like digital things being stripped from me. So it's odd. I was talking to some friends the other day. There was a demo for a game called PT. It was a Silent Hill demo. If you're familiar, gosh, why is that word hard? With the Silent Hill franchise, there was a demo called PT that came out on the PlayStation 4. I think it was 2014, 2015. Like, I distinctly remember sitting in my senior year apartment with some buddies, and we were all playing it, and we were terrified. It was incredibly scary, but we loved it. We were having a great time. And then a few months after that, it disappeared. Like, it's still in my library on my PlayStation right now, but I was talking to one of my buddies. Apparently, like, the developer like left the company and did some different things. But anyway, the company that actually developed that software decided they were going to pull it from the PlayStation Store and make it not playable. So even though it's like in my library, like, I could, in theory, download that license for that game, I can't. I literally can't. It's just not available. I think for a time there were some PlayStations out there that still had it downloaded on their hard drive, and they were selling for like $1,000 on eBay. One that's a little bit more, probably more well known, is Flappy Bird. This was, again, probably my like sophomore or junior year of college, where it was all get all over, right? Everybody had it on their iPhone, iPods, whatever. It was an incredible game, and then all of a sudden, like, the developer just decided that they were going to pull it. It was not going to be available, and if you tried to update it, it completely, like, just ripped it off of your device, and people were selling like unupdated versions of that game that were still on their device for like upwards of like $1,000, $2,000, because I don't know why, but the developer decided they didn't want it to be available anymore. And so, even though people loved the game and they thought it was awesome, it just wasn't something that they could have anymore. And that's truly something that like could just happen, right? So I am somebody, I like a good deal. I grew up in a household where it's like, all right, we're trying to find, some good deals for different things. And so oftentimes I will like peruse the Apple store and kind of see what's available especially movies. That's a big one. A lot of times they have digital movies on sale after, a year or two, bundles, whatever. And you can buy them oftentimes at a discount. So I have a lot of different movies. But one thing that's on my mind is like, really, when I'm purchasing that and when you guys are purchasing that, you're really just purchasing a license for that movie. Like, if anything happened at some point, just like somebody who had downloaded PT or downloaded Flappy Bird, you're really just getting like a license to that game. Like, whatever platform you're purchasing that on could potentially just lose that license. And then, even though you paid money for it, like, you don't have it anymore. So, like, I know that's kind of like an anxiety thing, and kind of like, I don't want to be like, oh, they're going to take all your stuff away. But that is like a real possibility, right? And it's something that I think people should consider, because it's a fact. Like, something could happen. Um, you look at other things too. Like, sometimes movies get edited out after the fact. Something that may be no longer like politically correct, and things like that. Like, if you look at something like Song of the South, which was a movie that Disney, even though they'll distance themselves from it, they released it back, I don't remember when, but they released it way back in the day, and it, you just can't find it anywhere. Like, you almost have to like rip it from, I don't know where. I think my parents found a copy somewhere, but it was like incredibly hard to find. But because it is a problematic movie that does show slavery in a light that is not accurate or correct at all, like, it's not really readily available. So, and just that's just an example. But even if you look at like Gone with the Wind, like things that have gone back and like been retroactively like edited. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. Max ended up editing that movie, exactly, Gone with the Wind, and they like took out some things that were deemed problematic. And like, I'm not going to argue the fact that whether they are or not, right? That's not what I'm here to do. Personally, I think some of them probably were, but you know, if you want to consume media in the way that it was originally released, a lot of times, like, the best way to do it is through physical media, because again, something digital, something on streaming, something that you've purchased through a license, could be changed and could be edited. So, something to keep in mind. Also, like, a big thing too is like, it supports the artist way more. So, especially with music, like, music is a big one. Like, I'm an Apple Music guy, and I know that's a unpopular thing. A lot of people have Spotify. That's like the big streaming platform. We can talk about that elsewhere, but I definitely love Apple Music more than Spotify, because of something like, they do support the artist more than Spotify. But as I record on a Spotify platform, so hopefully they don't cancel me. But I'll let's say, like, more. I looked it up at one point. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but like, more of the proceeds from your purchase, from a purchasing of the actual, like, whether it be a CD or and oh my gosh, I forgot it again, a record, because again, I don't have those. Purchasing those things, like, more proceeds go to the artist. So, from a support standpoint, like, if you truly like the media that you're consuming, it if you support the artist, like, you are supporting them more by purchasing the album than by streaming it on a platform. Like, I think when it comes down to it, like Spotify and Apple, like even though Apple's more, like it's like fractions of a penny like per stream. Like it's so small. Like they have to stream so many different like it's huge. The number is ginormous that they actually have to stream in order for them to make money off of it. But if you buy a CD for like 15-20 bucks, I actually don't know how much they go for right now. Way more is going to support the artist. So I think even from like a support standpoint, like buying the physical media is so much better. Um, Also, when AI takes over eventually, just kidding, just kidding. But if they did, and all of our stuff goes like controlled by a computer somewhere, we're not going to have that anymore. I'm not here to do doom and gloom, but outside of that, like I just as a personal anecdote, like I live in a pretty nice apartment, pretty new. We have like a fiber internet that we have to have here at my apartment complex, but um, it's gone out. There's some construction going on around my apartment complex, and they've knocked out our internet on multiple occasions. And I even had a date the other night, and we were watching. I wanted to like just watch some stuff, whatever, and internet went out. So I was like all right, like I guess we're gonna hang out and enjoy each other's company. But like no, like I several months ago when I decided I wanted to go onto that physical media like craze, I guess you could call it. I bought a box set of The Office, and I've been working through that, and thank goodness I had that, because otherwise, like, I don't know, I guess we would just like talk to each other for hours. I joke about that. That would have been just fine too. But again, that's happened on multiple occasions here the last month or so, and I'm appreciative that I had some physical media that I could kind of rely on as far as just cracking a movie open or watching The Office or playing a game that I had like on disc that was available to me already. Um, I I just think that the fact that you own something and it's separate from internet, it's separate from whatever a company decides to do is is incredibly valuable. So, and honestly, like the money that you save from paying for a streaming platform or paying for a discounted digital movie, like over time, like again, if there's situations like this that come up where you lose internet or again, like somebody changes something or they lose a license, like you're gonna, I think people are gonna regret they don't have like physical copies. And I'm probably gonna like sound like a guy who's like doomsday prepping here, but like I think that it's good to have. It's good to have. So, but some cons. So there are some cons to it, right? I think number one, like physical media obviously fills up space. So like I have a bookcase with movies and some video games and everything, and now that I've started to buy more stuff, like it's almost full, and I excuse me, I haven't been collecting for like forever, right? I've done a good amount of digital stuff, but I am going to run out of space soon. And if I want to continue to collect physical copies of movies and video games, then I'm going to have to buy another bookcase, which I know is just buying another bookcase. But if I were to like buy every movie, video game, TV show, whatever that I wanted, like I'm gonna have to have a lot of bookcases. So there are some cons there for sure. Storage is a big one, and then two, and probably the bigger one is like technology changes. Like I have DVDs and Blu-rays and again different video games, but I also have video games from like the original PlayStation, and I do have a PS2 which can play those games, but it's kind of a hassle to hook up. So like what benefit do I have for that? Like I could buy a digital version of a lot of those games on my PlayStation 5 and have it right there and it's just ready to rock and roll and I have that. That's definitely a perk. I have some VHS tapes that belonged to my grandfather and I want to keep those. He passed away and I want to hang on to them and that's something that I want to keep, but I don't have a VHS player. Like, there's really not like a practical purpose for me to have those. Like, I'm not going to actually watch any of those movies. But as technology continues to progress, like, who knows? Like, the people who like invested in a ton of those VHS back in like the '90s, early 2000s, like, you know, when we moved to DVDs and Blu-rays, like all those VHS tapes kind of became like that, irrelevant. And technology continues to progress. We've been in the same technology now for a while. We've had DVDs for, I don't know the year that it first came out, but I would imagine like 25 years or more. I think it was in the 90s. I want to say Twister was one of the first movies to come out on DVD, and that was the 90s. So, technology will progress and will continue to change. So, there is some risk because you got to have something that actually play the stuff that you're purchasing. So, um, things to weigh. Things to weigh. So that's really like most of my thoughts there. I am personally going to continue to invest in physical media. Personally, because of the fact that my internet has proven to be somewhat unreliable, I will continue to buy some different things so that I have them available, internet or no. I will continue to buy video games because like part of that too, like I can resell them afterwards. If I buy a digital version of something, I'm stuck with it forever. I can't be like, you know what, I want to trade this in. Don't go to GameStop because they won't give you money back. Not really. But it's a lot of those things. Side note, like if you look at some of your old physical games like PlayStation, Nintendo 64, like those are worth some money. But like 20, 30, 40 years down the road, if they're like big PlayStation 5 games, something like that, like if you own it on a digital like version, like nobody cares. You can't sell that to somebody. That could not be like potentially a good investment for you buying it like that. But if you have a physical copy, something that's like in good condition, if you're not a collector, not somebody who wants to hang on to it, like, it's you're not going to make anything again off of a digital copy. So those are just some different thoughts of mine. Again, that's me. That's my opinion. That's something that has kind of been on my mind the last few months, and again, been chatting with some of my friends about. And I hope that you guys think about it too, right? What's important to you, right? Like having it convenient and readily available, like on streaming, which I totally get, because again, I'm an Apple Music subscriber. I don't have I don't have any CDs in my collection, right? But I do have a lot of DVDs and video games. So I do want to start building up that CD collection and try to get there. But do you want to support an artist? Do you care about having it readily available at home? So anyways, those are my thoughts. I can encourage you to think about them for yourself. So that's it. You said it best, brother. Peace out.